All right. We're live. We're live on YouTube. Whenever you're ready, Josh.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon. I am you caught me mid tweet, but I am
In
here.
flagrante.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just also share it with our close good friends, our bosom companions
on the
Discord.
Sunday crowd.
Yeah, exactly. We're live. All right. Well, happy last day of almost. It's the last day of September in the UK, Brandon. It will be that in four hours over here.
Sure.
It's my child's birthday tomorrow, so the last day of September is always a notable
Farmer's Almanac episode of Always Cheating.
That's true. You have a September birthday yourself, although it's earlier in the month.
Virgos are the right way.
Yeah,
and I have in me this idea that are Virgos better at FPL than other sort of star signs? Yeah. I don't know. Like Virgos tend to be very organized, etc.
Well, I don't think so. I don't know that that they are a Virgo though, right? What is the Okay, this is Libra. Yeah, my kid is actually a Libra. Remember, because it's like the 20th. Anyway, okay, I'm going to cut this off right here. Yeah. All right. Let's do proper
reset.
Yeah, proper reset.
YouTube people see it for what it is. The podcast starts now.
All right, here we go. Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Josh, I can't believe we managed to do this at such short notice, but Cole Palmer is on the line. Cole, if you can hear us right now, please say hello. Wonderful. Great. Yeah. So listen, we're going to be doing an hour and a half with Cole Palmer, fantasy related, which is incredible. Yep. So, Josh, our mission in this episode is to basically pick apart the rubble of Gameweek 6. What does X mean and what does Cole Palmer mean? So how are you feeling in terms of like the dominance of the Cole Palmer narrative?
Well, it's hard to avoid it, given how it was really like it ended up being the most important factor. I suppose if you'd captain Salah, you also had a little bit of an edge, right? It felt like you had. It was really, I don't know, it's one of those things. It's like you have to separate the kind of world of the kind of like really hardcore people from everybody else. I'm not sure, that everyone in the entire planet wildcarded this weekend. I mean, I didn't and you didn't, right? So clearly, but a lot of people did. And so a lot of people who did, they brought in Saka. And I think quite logically, if you brought in Saka, it made sense to captain him for the Arsenal match. And I think some of the good and the bad with Saka was seen today, or yesterday, I should say. And I think some of the, really a lot of the good with Cole Palmer was also seen in that match, right? In their respective matches. So I actually think I want to start with Saka because I think that it's sort of
curveball. I love this. Well, it's like Malcolm Gladwell is on.
There's sort of like a pair, right? You've got because James said a long debate on Salah versus Palmer, please. But to me, it's you have Salah, Saka, and Palmer. Neymar Butland said it. So I sold Salah for my team, and I do not have Palmer. Now what? Do we go all in on Cole Palmer? If I do this, I might have to shut the door on Mo. So. They're all like it's very hard to have everybody, and you and I are both in the like you must have Haaland camp, right? I think like we've like established the Haaland part of it, right? We both feel like
we've moved on.
Yeah, and you may disagree with us on that, and that's fine. But
what a
for
great
me,
week to disagree too. The Haaland blank. Maybe that is, as you're suggesting, like alternate narratives from Cole Palmer. Yeah, maybe one of the real narratives we should track is the Haaland blank today. This weekend.
And I think it's an interesting test because I do think that one of the things we saw this weekend, which we had seen historically many times before, which is that Man City, that Man City do not look.
Manchester is not a monolith.
Yeah, exactly. That Man City do not look as potent without Rodrigo in the middle, right? And so
I don't know if that. I don't know if I agree with that because Rodri was not a force at the start of the season. You had Kovacic in that position.
It looks
And
like he's like a walking red card, by the way.
but
It's like it's all he does is do red card challenges that don't
sure,
get called
whatever.
red cards.
Haaland still dominated those first couple of weeks of the season.
Sure.
Outside of Rodri, I do not buy this narrative that Rodri's absence diminishes Haaland. I don't buy it.
Well, I think it diminishes the level of control that Man City have in the match, which maybe.
But how do you explain the first couple of weeks of the season where Haaland still went supernova without Rodri?
But I just don't think they were playing. I don't think the environments they were in were as tough, right? I mean, I think West Ham have no identity this season at all. I mean, I think
it's a fixtures situation.
Well, I think to a degree, yeah. I think the fixtures are a factor. I mean, I think this was. I mean, I certainly. I mean, Haaland even had chances in this match, right? He had a header late in the match where he probably in a different time, different moment scores in that. But I do think I'm not extrapolating here from what I think is going to happen. Like we have seen that Man City have struggled to kind of impose their will on opposition without Rodri. But even if you put him aside, it's so funny. Like I know we're kind of rambling now because now we're talking about Haaland, but it's really it's the whole kind of okay. If I were to give this a frame, so it's a little easier to follow along with what we're talking about here, it's that there are if you want to have 11 good players, 11 players that are worth that are worth starting each week, and you don't want the stress of trying to rotate a bunch of 4.5 million options, you can only have so many expensive premium players, right? It's just really going to be hard to have Salah and Haaland and Saka and Palmer, almost impossible, right? That alone would be almost 50 million between the four of them, right? So you have to make some really tough choices about who you kind of trust to be really reliable fantasy assets. And I think even within that bucket, I don't know that there's necessarily a right answer, because it does come down a little bit to personality too. And some people want the reliability of Saka, right? Who I suppose
corner kicks,
right? But yeah, takes corner kicks. But he's but he's creating a ton of chances, right? Like if you look at his, the stats from the match. I mean, the whole thing with his bonus points were bizarre, right? I don't know if I don't know how much he it was just confusing, right? Because it was he was on for 2 when he was credited with the assist, and then he lost the assist, which somehow bumped him up to 3 bonus points, and then he lost those 2 bonus points today. Apparently, it was so I don't. And the whole thing, I don't know why it took several hours for that very clear own goal to be called an own goal.
It should be. Should be driven by Opta, right? So if it's driven by Opta, why is it not? I don't know enough about Opta to say, but it feels like that should be relatively more real time than it is generally on the FPL side. We saw the same thing with Morgan Rogers last week, but it was just it was so bizarre. And additionally, with the Ndidi own goal and the Leicester Arsenal match, the own goal was attributed. If you went on the desktop version of the FPL site, you could see the Ndidi own goal. If you're on the mobile app, you can't see the Ndidi own goal. What? There is a little bit of garbage sort of user interface that needs to be weeded out.
Those are your words. Your words, not mine, because I have made a pledge this season that I will not talk about game infrastructure. No, okay. I made 2 pledges to myself going into this year, and so far I think I've actually kept them. One is I will not complain about gameplay, like FPL gameplay, which I would happily do, by the way, if anyone would actually listen to it and wouldn't just be bored. I could spend a full hour every week talking about the things that I would change if I were in charge. The other thing I will not talk about is FPL community as a meta conversation. I'm done with that. That is over. You will never hear me talk about that stuff again, because it's
sorry, folks.
Everybody, it is the most insidery thing. And unless you are in that world, unless you're one of the 60 people who care about this stuff, it is so tedious and boring for everybody else.
We have, they will go nameless, but a wonderful producer patron who is basically a college football fan in middle America. And they watch Premier League because it is prelude to Saturday college football. And if we tell them you've got to pay attention to the gameplay of the FPL app, That's no bueno.
Yeah,
That's not
it's
where
just,
we want to be.
no, it's just not interesting, right? And everybody's playing the same game. Like
Yeah, right.
it's not like there's some alternative, with fantasy NFL. At some point you'd be like, all right, well, if I'm, complaining about the ESPN app or whatever, it's like, well, just go to the 9 other, not even 9, like 90, right?
Okay.
The 90 other play.
We
So anyway, so the
we don't
point
want to
is,
get too far down this rabbit hole.
right.
Back to
Right.
Cole Palmer.
Right. So yeah, exactly. But just to finish, the point is
Go on.
everyone has the same game and the same set of rules. So complaining about it is kind of pointless too, right? And that was sort of where I was going with that. So anyway, so Palmer, what I'm seeing is a Chelsea squad that has somehow like figured it out. It's like they just kept buying all of these attacking players. And even though all of the kind of pieces around Palmer change, right? And I don't think any of them are especially reliable in fantasy. Maybe Nicholas Jackson's like heading there a little bit. Even he missed a bunch of chances though today. Was subbed off and frustrated in that match. I'm seeing a kind of talismanic, dare I say, Harry Kane style presence in that Chelsea squad. And when I look at Arsenal, I'm seeing a club where it's a little more stable, but there are a lot of different people who can score. Like Declan Rice actually kind of wishes he was a forward. We can all see that now. He is like
he's wants barely to be the center of attention.
Yeah, he's like stop protecting the defense. He doesn't, the defense. He just doesn't even. He wants to be a forward, and that's fine. Like he's
photo bombing all of the attacks is what he's doing. He's like, oh, hey, over here, hey,
yeah, it's always like
present during. Yes.
Yeah, it's like they conceded 2 goals, and then he was taking wild shots from outside the box. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, he's a corny dude. No, we don't need to legislate that.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the best players in the league last year, but it feels like anyway, it doesn't matter. They won the game. Congrats to them. I mean, James Justin was crazy. But anyway, but with Saka, I mean, you sort of talked about this a little bit last week, which is a feeling that he might be almost like falling into like a James Ward-Prowse lane here, where he is, a really strong fantasy asset in many ways. Like objectively, he is, right? Like there's too many returns.
Totally. So this is how I think the discussion that is happening this week forward is premium assets, Saka, Palmer, Salah, etc. Is Palmer. I like the way you frame Palmer as this talismanic asset who is a bit more free-flowing, Harry Kane style. He is going to be at the center of everything. Where you look at Saka, he is, and the way Arteta has smartly structured this Arsenal team is Saka is really just a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And the only way this Chelsea team works is if Cole Palmer does it. And so the question I have about Palmer specifically is these results that we have gotten in fantasy from Palmer are like just 2 results. Wolves and who the heck did they play this weekend? Brighton. Yeah. The most remarkable abject performances from defenses to a degree you can say Chelsea exploited the abjectness of Brighton and Wolves.
I mean, he scored last week as well, and he got an assist in the Palace match. So
yes, like I think the thing that we're talking about though is the explosiveness of Palmer. And if you were to say you could get what we got last week from Palmer, blah blah blah, I would be willing to take that to the sternum, and I don't need to have him. What happened against Brighton basically says we have to reckon with this. How frequently is this going to happen? So what's weird about this Palmer situation is just like wholesale judgment on Chelsea as a team, as opposed to like you. I think that's a good comparison you make with Harry Kane, where Harry Kane is at the number 9 through the years, sort of a subject to judgment, sort of a Spurs, but Harry Kane will always be consistent. His Palmer right there, I just don't know. So right now I'm
so funny because you were like team Cole Palmer like going into the season. He was like first name on your team sheet. You've since like I don't know what happened to make you like somewhat like sour on him a little bit.
Okay. What was he in my in drafts going into the first season? I mean, perhaps he was, and I guess what you're saying is you're complimenting me as being a smart person, but what I'm telling you is this Chelsea team, what we know going into the season and coming out of the first couple of weeks of the season is the Chelsea clubhouse is a bit of a mess in terms of how the team is being structured and how in terms of the rotation. Like Nkunku is kind of a bellwether, right? Like Nkunku starts the first couple of match weeks and he's immediately bombed out of the squad. The squad has so much turmoil in terms of who's vying for starting and et cetera. Cole Palmer is this is another like wrinkle in it. Like, how is there is so much turmoil in the starting lineup of Chelsea with so many good players? João Felix, Jadon Sancho, Nkunku, and still Palmer is unflappable. Like, he will never move from that. Like, how he has suddenly risen above all these incredible like European names.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it just a very interesting dilemma to me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, I feel like this is sort of like the dilemma that is defining the early part of the season all of a sudden.
Well, I don't know what, I mean, it's a dilemma only in the sense that if you wanted to have someone else besides Palmer, it would be tricky. I mean,
sure. Okay. So
doesn't seem to affect him.
Do you see it as a dilemma, Cole Palmer?
No. In fact, I will go so far as to tell you that I have actually already brought Palmer in.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I dropped Salah for Palmer, and I also dropped João Pedro for Ollie Watkins. So I made those moves. I made them today. I took a hit to do it. I am no longer even, I'm not even sure I'm actually even going to go to sites like FPL Review anymore. I am so sick of following this stuff. And it's not that I think that they're wrong. It's just not interesting to me anymore. Like that, the game of having the same team as everybody else and then rising and falling as one has lost its appeal to me. And what I want is the two Harry Kane level talismanic players and Ollie Watkins and Cole Palmer, who are so essential to their squads that they're going to play every single match as long as they stay healthy. And both of them have had, good track records of that so far in their careers. And I just want them, and I don't want to wait any longer. And and Salah had to go, not because I don't rate Salah, but because he costs $2 million more than all of these guys, right? And so that's the other equation. It's not just Salah; it's Salah plus $2 million, right? It's the Salah money allows you to turn João Pedro into Ollie Watkins, right? Like that is a pretty significant upgrade as far as I'm concerned, right? Like assuming that João Pedro is even able to play this weekend, and like who knows, right? Like they may just keep him out through Gameweek 7 with the international break.
We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Exactly. So I just felt like I'm just sort of pulling the trigger on that. And I think, Salah, he scored a pen. He was okay. He had some moments. It was a real, like, I don't know what happened to pre-international break Salah. Like, I don't know if we'll see him again after the next international break. Maybe he gets, like, he revs up and down in between international breaks. I don't know. But like what I feel like we've seen the last few weeks is, spring 2024 Salah, which is I think
we've seen the exact same thing pre and post international break Salah. It's just a marginal thing with fantasy returns and it's the same thing we've seen from Salah for like the last year and a half of he is really, he can't take a defender on one-on-one anymore. And that's really diminished his fantasy game. Right. But like
forces them to either set somebody up or take a outside
Liverpool
the box
is so
shot.
good that he can sort of augment those fantasy returns and the real life returns, and I think that's where he's at. So, the Salah versus Palmer comparison is wildly interesting right now because Salah is this very steady, regardless of performance. You will get these returns, and I think you could say the same of Saka. And then Palmer really is how abject is the team that Chelsea are going to play, and if they're abject, then Chelsea, then Palmer will get 30 points. And if they're not
Yeah,
abject,
but
Palmer will get 3 points.
I mean, is Brighton abject? I mean, Brighton
Yeah, totally. That
Brighton have played
performance
well.
was abject.
Okay,
they were terrible.
Okay.
They
All
were
right,
so bad.
you're in a mood right now, but I mean, Brighton went to Arsenal just a couple of weeks ago and put in a really strong performance.
Sure,
against
but yeah,
them.
how do you compare that to how they played against Chelsea? I just don't think you can compare the two performances.
I mean, it's like I just don't. It's like Brighton looked good, and then Chelsea run them over, and it's not in your eyes. It's not that Chelsea played well; it's that Brighton are abject, and I'm just not sure that I totally agree with you on that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think that the interesting thing about this Chelsea team is that they understand when they can really just go ham on a team that's not ready for it. It's kind of similar to you could compare it to, I should say, the Spurs performance against Manchester United, and that Spurs play a very specific sort of way, and they won't compromise, and this is always their Achilles heel. But it's like so on brand for Manchester United to not be aware of this, and Spurs just steamrolled them today. Yeah. And I think Chelsea are a weird sort of like Reddit version of Spurs in a way. It's just like they're sort of like looking for a post that they can just like utterly annihilate, and they'll do so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have a real sense of Chelsea's identity. I will agree with you that I think they're still trying to figure that out a little bit. But it does feel like they've got the tools to be a real attacking team. They may actually be better than Spurs. I mean, based on performance on the table so far, they are, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess it's the same with like Spurs today. Was that a good performance from them, or were Man United abject?
It was the first half. I thought was an incredible performance by Spurs, and it's so interesting how it's like Postecoglou cannot demand 90 minutes of that version of football, but how can Spurs just come out? It seems like every time Spurs have a good first half of football, they can't follow it up with the second half. But I thought Spurs were great. To answer your question, I thought they were great.
Without Son too, which is very surprising.
Kulusevski was he rose to the moment. I think he gets the
that's true. Yeah.
Or Timo Werner maybe starts over Son. But anyway, it was a great team performance from Spurs, and I don't know. I honestly
2 goals and 2 now from Solanke as well.
Just look at Brandon Johnson, 4 goals and 4 from him.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know why I don't consider him more seriously. Like there's something about, I just like don't, I mean, he's only 6.4 million. He's very ownable in fantasy. He started virtually every match so far this season. Yeah. He started 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 6. Came on at halftime in one of the other matches.
Brandon Johnson caught my eye more than Solanke. I thought Solanke's hold up play was garbage. I didn't think he was very good at all. And all the goals he's scoring for Spurs currently are just like him hoovering up tap-ins and whatnot. And like, I like Solanke. I don't want to diminish him, but I think he's really taken his time to grow into this system, or vice versa. Brandon Johnson seems like the hotter fantasy asset to me.
So would you consider Johnson for your team?
Sure. Yeah. 4 and 4. Yeah. He looks good. He looks fired up. Sure, why not?
Possible as a replacement, right?
For sure.
I mean, I think I've got him on my bench right now, looking at my game week 7 squad. So why don't you? But you had my game week 6 is still in progress. I've got Samini to go tomorrow. Let's see how he does. I'm down. I'm on like a little bit of a red arrow, not as much as it could have been. Honestly, Saka losing those bonus points did help me. I guess, by the way, I don't know if we need to actually finish this conversation about premium defenders, but I would say if I were to rank them, I probably would I guess I would go Haaland, Palmer, Salah, Saka would be my like rough order in terms of my like kind of preference of what I want to own in my fantasy team.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I wouldn't say you're wrong. Well, why would I say I'm wrong? You were wrong. That would make for good content if I did call you wrong, but I don't think you're wrong. There really is. It's like Rocky 5. street fight between Salah and Palmer right now. And I wonder if it does come down to the opposition for Palmer. That's like my one question.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you on the rankings there. I have stuck with Salah. I've put my team up on the screen. If you're following us on YouTube, I've finished on 55 all out. You've got Semenyo left to play. I don't have anybody in the Monday match, but 55 gives me a green arrow up to 819k OR, which will go down on Monday. But I'll surely finish on a green arrow, which I feel good about. The one transfer I made was Isak out for Havertz, and that worked out. Havertz didn't play. Havertz had just like the most sort of like FIFA online pro goal of all time.
Yeah. Like it just like he didn't even know where I don't think he knew where the ball was,
No,
but
he didn't mean it.
Yeah.
It's positional play. So applaud Havertz for positional play. He was right there at the right time, even though he was in an offside position. The defender played it there. Obviously, my one regret is Robinson is on my bench with the 7-pointer, but it wouldn't be an FPL game week if I didn't leave points on the bench. I left a 10-pointer for Rodgers on the bench last week. And now Robinson with the 7-pointer, but like who would I have benched?
Nobody. I mean, maybe I guess in theory you could have benched Smith Rowe, but why would you do that? Like for an away matchup for us? I know. Sometimes that's just going to happen. It's just a sign of a strong squad, right?
Yeah, totally. And when we podcasted for our Patreon supporters on Thursday night, we were debating play Gordon over Robinson, and ultimately we made the right decision there, where Gordon played the attacking asset. Manchester United defense is horrible. And there you have it, 9/7. So I feel like ultimately I win there. I have one free transfer going into next game week. This is one of those game weeks where I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do going forward. Yeah. It's sort of like, maybe there is one version of this where I just wild card because there are guys like Ollie Watkins who I'm interested in. Cole Palmer is almost as I feel like he's wholly separate from this discussion. I think what's so interesting about this upcoming transfer window is how Cole Palmer has broken everybody's thinking about the game. And in many respects, that's great. Like we want that. We want players like this.
Yeah, you want more good players than anyone can fit under their squad. It makes
for sure.
Variety.
For sure. Yeah. So generally big return, not big, generally modest returns from many players. I feel really good about being like marginally above the average of 47 on 55 points. How are you feeling about this week, Josh?
Yeah, I feel okay about my squad it was like the best I could do this week. It was like I kind of knew it was always going to be a bad week because I wasn't wildcarding this week and a lot of other people were. And so I gambled and wildcarded early. It was an unsuccessful gamble, unfortunately, but it was, I knew what I was getting into. And so, and honestly, I'm not sure if you didn't wildcard in Palmer, it wasn't a great week for a lot of people either. So it's sort of, it just goes to show you never know how things are all going to shake out. Like I was really kicking myself last week for bringing in Vardy and feeling like I'd made a little bit of a mistake there. And maybe I still have, hard to say. But because I felt like it made sense to bench him this week, I got 7 from Robinson over Vardy. And if I had brought in, someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for example, I would have, had a blank. I think he got a yellow card, in fact, in that match as well. So, one
of those matches where you're like, did he even play? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's like the Dwight McNeil show right now for Everton, which is kind of fascinating. But I've always been, as you will attest, he is actually like an actual my boy, like a guy I've been shut in it for a long time. And so it feels hard. It's hard to believe it's a sustainable level of
on that boy.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's a sustainable level of return. I mean, he's such a known quantity. He's been around for years and years and years. He's never had a like sustained
Gibbs
run
White
before.
will break his leg at some point, and
yeah,
true Barclays man, Gibbs White.
Yeah, but I'm happy. I'm happy for McNeil, even though I don't own him, and honestly probably wouldn't recommend anybody get him. Like I don't actually. Not? I'm not. I just not like. I just don't think what he's doing is sustainable given what we know about him as a player. It's possible. It's possible it is, and he's found some level or something like that. But I mean, it's pretty unusual for
Riyad Mahrez.
I mean, but it's not like he's 22 years old, right? I mean, how old? Like he's got to be like what 27 or something like that.
What's the over under on Dwight McNeil?
He's okay. He's actually only 24. He's older. He's one of these guys who's been around forever. He's been because he was playing on Burnley going back to 2018 when he was.
You could get Dwight McNeil for a price of a cup of coffee back then.
Yeah, exactly. He was an old, like, I think that's why I usid to like him, because he was like an old 4.5 million to 5 million asset. You could stick him on your bench.
Cork-esque.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of like my squad, it's sort of, I mean, zero. My defense was a disaster, but last week I got double-digit returns from 3 of them. So I don't know. It's a hard. It's what.
How you feel about Trent Alexander-Arnold these days?
Honestly, fine. I mean, he's like, he had a great free kick chance. He it didn't do anything with it, but like he's involved in everything. It was sort of he got another one of these time wasting. I don't know why this was like a problem that had 6 minutes
into the match.
I don't remember ever thinking, oh, there's so much time wasting going on with players in the ball. Like I don't remember ever once thinking about that.
It's easier to give a yellow card to a guy who kicks the ball away as opposed to a guy who's writhing around on the pitch in pain.
Which is what actually delays the game, right?
I do think with Trent, though, while he ended up in a 1-pointer this week, like what I saw in Gameweek 6 was a player who is talismanic to Liverpool, a leader. Where like Virgil van Dijk, okay, not to get like all woo-woo on you, but I feel like Virgil van Dijk, like his mentality is to recede from that. Like he wants to be stoic and like not have to say anything. Trent is happy to be front and center, and I think I really like that as a fantasy asset where Trent realizes he's a veteran of the squad, new management, etc. He's gonna be involved in everything. And I think he's been really well. The 1-pointer, I agree, shouldn't discourage anybody. Yeah.
And so, and it was really, I guess it's just the Salah blank that makes my game, or I mean, the Haaland blank that makes my game week look bad. But otherwise, I sort of feel like it was fine. Returns from Robinson. I brought it in Bomo, got a goal and 2 bonus points from him.
Insane. Started Rodgers. He will only get returns in the first minute of the match.
I know. I thought about that too. I was like, I had that feeling too. I was like, he's not going to return again, is he? Like it was sort of, I kind of knew it. Salah, Rodgers. It was, Rodgers gets his goal. Like, so I think he got subbed for the first time all season. So
he did, which was, I don't really know what to make of that, particularly in a contentious match where like, I don't really understand how Emery viewed how that match, the game stayed.
I don't know either. I don't know if it's just that he was playing too many minutes recently and he felt like he was flagging a little bit or something. That must have been it, right? I mean, they have a Champions League match at midweek, so
maybe, but even still, as fantasy managers, to see Rodgers finally get the assist that he got last week and the goal this week, it's all upside. It's all good. And if you're looking at any midfield transfer that's not Cole Palmer, if it's not Morgan Rodgers, I don't understand where your head's at.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Just a super, and honestly, I think everyone's the memo is out, right? I mean, I think his, I wonder what his, I don't want to pull it up right now, but I feel like his ownership must have increased dramatically over the last couple of weeks as people have started to like really like. I think he really was one of those, like, I hate to even say underlying stats because I don't think you needed to like look at a FB ref or something to see what he was doing, right? If you literally were just watching Villa matches, you saw number 10 who was creating chances, shooting a lot.
Currently 19.1% owned across the site. And
still kind of low, honestly.
It is low, and sort of like what's your perception of active managers there? But the midfield is a crowded space for sure. And,
Sure. Yep.
the discussion around Cole Palmer is so many people are focused on, I have to get the next best premium midfielder in. Is Morgan Rogers actually sneakily a great investment for your team? Like,
Yeah.
don't you already have Rogers, so this is not necessarily applicable.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
did immediately make a premium midfielder transfer. So I think a lot of people are in
Yeah.
this mode of, I
Yeah.
need to get the next premium guy in.
And again, I am aware that I'm making a hyper aggressive move.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it before the Champions League, before the Europa League, before there's even a match tomorrow. And I'm just risking it more. I don't love my rank right now. I mean, it's fine, but it's just not where I want to be.
Where
And,
are you right now?
Like 1.5 roughly, right? 1.5 million. And it's just like, which is fine. Like but I just feel like I want to stick to my guns and play my own game this year, and I'm okay with taking some risks, and so I risked it with the wild card that didn't work, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep kind of pushing, and so for me, I think one of the risks I'm going to be taking is just focusing a little more on the players I want instead of just doing the kind of fixture moves where you just sort of follow the fixtures. And I think part of the problem with the fixture moves is not that there's nothing wrong with that, but it just sort of it means you're going to move with everybody else, right? Like the fixture moves are you are going with the herd, right? And I don't mean that like in some horribly derogatory way, but it gives it, there's a reason that like a lot of like the reason it's kind of the recommended strategy. But to me, I just feel like just give me a couple of these talismanic players who are scoring a lot and essential to their side. And
so spin that into, I feel like we need to put a finer point on Cole Palmer.
Do we? I mean, we talked about it for 25 minutes.
No, we do. We do, because you brought him in.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think everybody listening to this podcast should be on Palmer? Is he you got to get him in sort of a guy? You brought him in.
Well,
do you feel like it's a universal sort of a thing?
I don't know that you have to. I mean, I will say in the context for me was Salah was set to drop, Palmer was set to rise, Pedro was set to drop, right? So there was a kind of 0.3 swing that was about to happen. And I felt like I wanted to, what I really wanted to do was move Salah to Palmer. And then as I started thinking about it, I was like, well, I'm probably going to have a João Pedro problem to solve this week as well. So why don't I just fix that right now too and get ahead of the price changes? And so that's, that's really the gamble. And it's not that I'm like, I have any problem with playing Salah, away to Crystal Palace. I think he's a perfectly fine option for that fixture. It's more about targeting Palmer. The caveat I will give for Palmer is you have to, unlike you, who feels like he's only going to be able to do this against inferior opposition.
Bully,
and I just don't. I mean, first of all, every good player is like a flat track bully. Like all of the best players, do their best. And but I think that he's got another really strong home fixture in Gameweek 7, and I just don't want to wait any longer. I feel like he's set for more price rises, and I just want to get in on that and chance it. And so and Salah was just the piece I had to sacrifice. Like, if it was chess, right? He's like the knight, that had to be sacrificed in order for me to move forward. And that's just sort of the gamble that I'm taking. And I just want to be making decisions this year. Right. And like, I know sometimes I get a little like meta about this stuff, but to me, it's like the gameplay is like the fun for me. And if I feel like, right, it's the decision-making that's fun for me. And if I feel like I've completely outsourced that to a bunch of websites and conversation, I'm sort of lost my connection to the game or what is appealing to me about it. Right. And so I don't know. Let's see how this goes. Right. But like, I feel like last year I played like kind of by the book and it didn't really work out for me. And so now I'm going to go back to, a style that has really worked for me in the past. Right. I mean, I have 5 top 10K finishes and I don't really know what I've gotten away from, except that I feel like I've gotten more reliant on looking at data. And I'm not sure that that's really helped me that much, to be totally honest.
I think that's a very sort of fun and interesting way to create like a new rankings for assets in FPL of chessboards. Is Cole Palmer a queen or is he a rook? Is he a
Mhm.
knight? Is he a bishop?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Gotta watch out. You might get canceled there. You know, there's this.
right. And where is Salah, etc. I mean, and the king, basically Haaland is the king in that
Yeah,
it's like he's very fragile. You could
yeah.
captain him and you get nothing from him, but you
Mhm.
must protect him at all costs. So
Yeah,
that really is, like, I think the bottom line for this episode is there is no clear-cut answer, like yes you get Cole Palmer or no you don't.
right.
The answer is Cole Palmer is a very volatile asset, and
Yep, yep.
when he explodes in a way that is insanely detrimental to your rank if you don't have him.
Yeah.
And now it becomes a real test of wills of do you believe in him or not?
Yeah, and it sounds like you're still a little on the fence then
I
about
am
it.
I am on the fence, and for me, I will to get Cole Palmer in would be the same as you to move Salah, and I am willing to make that gamble that Salah will win out over a short medium term over
Yep,
Cole Palmer fixture over fixture. So that's where I'm at. And I don't think that's a
yep.
crazy gamble at
No,
all, and I like
no.
that you positioned it as this is an aggressive move. And obviously, you can't look at Cole Palmer's performance against Brighton and say that he's not an aggressive asset in fantasy to have. But I just wonder if Chelsea are as volatile as I view them to be in terms of game week to game week,
Right.
and Salah is more consistent, that there is an advantage to be gained, not only over Palmer grabbers on, but also Saka owners. Like,
Mhm.
we haven't even mentioned like all the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who wildcarded into game week 6 and went without Salah and brought in Saka and
Yep.
Arsenal assets. And Salah is kind of be getting turned over in a lot of this
Yeah.
sort of discussion, and disres- disrespected is too strong of a way to put it, but nobody really knows what to do with Salah right now because he is the price that he is, and I get that, and I guess like the position I'm in is I have Salah, and I'm kind of like there's been nothing that's happened to say that the price I've paid for Salah is detrimental to me versus like Saka or Palmer. Like it's kind of like let's go to battle next week. I've got Salah, you've got
Yeah.
Palmer. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, certainly my concern about Saka, just on the Saka question, because certainly that was another player I could have considered for my transfer this week if I needed to move Salah at all, which I didn't need to either. I agree, but I I just sort of felt like I'm still not convinced that he is I don't know. It just feels like he's like I mean, you sort of said it before, but it just feels like he's going to have to weather a massive burden without Odegaard in that squad, and he is going to be asked to take on some of Odegaard's kind of responsibilities as well, like more involvement in midfield. He's always going to have the set pieces, and there's always going to be chances for him to pick up easy returns from that. So
17 corner kicks in the match this weekend.
is that right?
17
From Arsenal alone?
Yeah, from
Or,
Arsenal.
wow,
Incredible volume of corner kicks.
That's amazing. It's honestly
Yeah.
amazing that they only scored a goal from those.
Saka didn't take all of them, but it's
Yeah.
Rice was taking on the other end.
It's funny how like it just feel like they almost always get corners on the right side of the.
Yeah.
There must be something about Martinelli missing chances or something, and then rolling over to the right
and
side,
just blasting them far of the far post. Yeah,
take a nick off somebody. All right, well that is that's your first half of the pod. I did want to quickly note there are Champions League matches at midweek. There are some interesting ones for sure with the Premier League squads. All right, the new style. Arsenal host PSG on Tuesday. Man City are in Slovakia also on Tuesday. Villa hosts Bayern on Wednesday, and Liverpool host Bologna on Wednesday. So some really interesting matches. And then Spurs are in Hungary, Man United are in Portugal on Thursday. So, so 6 of the 20 Premier League squads are playing in Europe this week.
Incredible.
So a lot could happen.
That's fun. That's just fun to like try to put that into a game that you're trying to play while you also answer like 1,000 emails from your boss this week.
Yeah, exactly. The Detroit Tigers snuck into the playoffs. So we've got that too.
There's a
lot going on right now. And then this is also the final game week before another international break. But I know you felt like you'd had too much Premier League. It's been about, we've
So
had
much.
about two weeks of Premier League, and now I think we're all ready to take another few weeks off.
You need to lay down, Josh.
Another international break. Everyone's favorite time of year. This is what I like to call the apple picking international break. If you live anywhere where you can pick apples, this is the break to do it.
Get yourself a serrated knife and make a little pumpkin face.
Yeah, exactly. This is
jack-o'-lantern.
It's the Halloween break, Halloween prep break. So that's where we are. And just a quick note, the Discord. I thought, you and I were both in the Discord fair amount this weekend. There's a lot going on as always. And so if you want to join that, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. And you can support the podcast and join in with unlike a lot of social media, people actually talk to each other and not just at each other. So it's a nice change from what you might see in other spaces. I'm not saying that doesn't exist in other spaces, but I don't know, like, maybe I'm just like sick of getting screamed at on Reddit, and so for me, it's like
we love our people.
Sure. Some people also say Reddit says that the nicest things and the meanest things are said to us week to week on there, and you just have to kind of roll with it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because Reddit people are not listening. They're pretenders and fakers, and it doesn't matter.
Oh, come on. That's not. A lot of people are actually there are a lot of great Reddit people out there, which is we also get a lot of mean people in the comments. That's fine.
Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. And also, listen, if you love us, you want to just say thanks. Despite all that, go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Get more FPL content and return. We love it. And also, if you love money, go in the comment section. Click a link. $250 gift certificates being given away by Blue Wire, our network sponsor. Take a little quick survey on our advertising network, and it's free money. So go to the show notes and click on the link right there.
Great. So we do have a game week. There's one more match tomorrow. That is Bournemouth hosting Southampton.
Give me a prediction, Josh.
Bournemouth to win 2-0. Like, so that is the words TO-0 and not 2-0. Bournemouth to win, keep a clean sheet.
Clean sheet. Okay.
Yeah, and a Semenyo goal. So I'm thinking like a 1-0 or 2-0 win for Bournemouth.
Okay. I like 2-1 to Bournemouth. I think we're not far from the same spot there.
Yeah. So game week 7 kicks off. We have a FPL Classic. We have a nice 7 matches on Saturday, 3 matches on Sunday. And there are a couple interesting ones in here for sure. Not like there aren't the kind of bangers of the last couple of weeks, right? We had Arsenal, Man City a couple weeks ago. And I suppose in its own way, the Spurs Man United match was a little bit of a banger today. I think ultimately the Bruno red card has just saved a lot of FPL managers from themselves. There's this feeling that you have to keep this guy despite this team
Saving Silverman, starring Jason. What was his name from American Pie? Like that. It's definitely a.
Biggs.
We were all
Jason
Silverman. We were all
Jason Biggs.
Jason Biggs. Right. Thank you. We were all telling.
Sorry, I think Brandon had a nice long brunch today. And,
we were just saying you've got to get rid of Bruno Fernandes, and finally this match basically confirmed that, right?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think it was probably time to drop him. So game week 7. We have I guess the kind of the big question is the captaincy and whether you kind of run it back with Saka if you have him, right? I mean, Arsenal hosts Southampton. It would kind of be, in some ways, the logical move, given if you're just kind of playing the fixture versus Haaland, who has an equally. I mean, I actually would think that in some ways it's a tricky fixture, as we saw with Fulham going away and keeping a clean sheet at Forest. The Forest team has played pretty well so far this season. I don't know that, and also like them looking a little bit shaky. Like, I think the big thing with Man City is it just doesn't feel like that team has changed at all, right? It's like they've added a couple of these, a couple of new players. I mean, a Grealish back in the squad, it's like for some reason Foden still can't get minutes. I don't know if he's still like his health is being managed or what the deal is there
It's
with
like
him.
Foden's season begins in November. Seems to be a declaration that
Yeah,
Pep may have made,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so
Yeah,
does City suddenly like hit some sort of a groove come November, and everyone's felt fit, but Bernardo Silva, I thought was completely invisible this weekend, and he was playing on the right where Savinho was able to be impactful the week before. And Pep is just like classic Pep, just like tinkering to the
yeah,
team's detriment in many ways.
yeah. It's like he always figures it out by January or
Yeah.
February, but yeah, I mean, and you did get a Gvardiol goal. It still hasn't really convinced me to bring him in. And I honestly, I would give Fulham a reasonable chance of scoring in that match. I think.
Every
Yeah,
team has a chance to score against Man
yeah,
City.
yeah,
Like there's
exactly,
no
exactly.
reason to bet
Yeah,
against that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, uh, I would say, okay, I guess here's the question: if you had Saka and Haaland, right? Because a lot of people
Mm,
listening will,
mhm.
maybe it's hard to put yourself in that spot, like that space. But if you did, would you plan to captain Saka this weekend?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't, and that doesn't make me courageous or interesting. I think that Saka is a good differential captain. A fit Saka is powerful in fantasy, and I think what I've noticed as just a watcher of the Premier League this season is that Saka is fully engaged, and despite Odegaard's absence, it's sort of like Odegaard is absent for Arsenal versus Rodri is absent from Man City. So it's like Saka and Haaland are on equal footing in terms of detriments they have going into each game week. So I don't think you can make an argument one way
Yeah.
or the other of like, oh, you've got to captain this person because of this absence.
What about
I
Cole Palmer? Also, like just to throw another name in there.
Yeah,
I mean, is there any reason to think that he won't get some kind of attack in return at home to Forest in game week 7?
I guess the reason is that Northampton, Nottingham Forest have been good this season, despite them having not a great performance at home against Fulham, though it was pretty tight. They've been a good team. They've been a top half of the table team at the start of the season. Chelsea off feels like their performance has been on a knife's edge. If the team gives them a window, they exploit it and destroy them. If
Yeah.
the team doesn't give them a window, then it's a bit muted. It can be a bit tetchy. So I wonder if Forrest is good enough to just close that sort of window of opportunity for a Palmer captaincy.
Yeah, I wonder too. I think, like, honestly, I guess I probably would captain Saka if I had him, just because maybe we need to see how Southampton look tomorrow. I don't know, but like they have just been so abject. I'm actually shocked. I am so the number of teams that just look completely not ready to play this season.
Mm-hmm.
It's bizarre to me, and like honestly, it's so funny watching like Liverpool.
Which
It was like
names?
or well like Leicester, not Liverpool. Leicester yesterday. It was like when they got to 2-2, I was like, how? Like they have not looked good for a second in this match, And it was like I mean, I guess it was a deflected kick and a
incredible, like you can't manage for those goals that Leicester scored, sort of
right,
thing,
right, and yeah, and credit to James Justin, who actually is one of your boys. We got
him.
goals from our boys this weekend with McNeil and James Justin. Yeah, two of our like longtime favorites.
Praise God. Yeah.
I thought I actually was wondering if the Justin goal might go down as an own goal, though I guess it was on target enough that it didn't. It was because it would have been a Havertz own goal, right? If it had been I mean, obviously it was on target, so yeah, but.
No, I hear you. Yeah, it was tight. It was tight. Yeah, so I Arsenal v Southampton is a very interesting fixture. We'll learn more with the Bournemouth match, but Arsenal, in terms of score at will clubs, I just go with Man City again because it's less like score at will club. It's more score at will guy.
Yeah,
and.
Yeah, like
it's kind of a crime that Haaland didn't score against Newcastle, and Haaland himself knew it. It was written all over his face.
Yep.
I think still given what it is, Haaland, Arsenal will spread the points around, and Haaland will be the only route to goal for Fulham. I think it's a Haaland captaincy again for me.
I think so too. I mean, I think I guess the arguments for each of them, I mean, the case against all of them. The case against Arsenal would be that they can get goals from a lot of different people, and that there's no kind of requirement for Saka to be involved in the goals, right? Like a lot of people can contribute in that squad. We're seeing it a lot with their fullbacks right now. I like Ben White actually might struggle to like get a consistent spot in this team right now because they're really, I don't know.
He's too busy playing for England, Josh.
That's true. Yeah, he's tired.
He's got a lot of obligations elsewhere.
Has that ever been like fully explained? I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah,
too cool.
Yeah, too cool for school. I think the argument against Chelsea would just be that they don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense still, and so it's kind of hard to map a predictable kind of result on them in terms of like what they might do. And so that maybe dings Palmer a tiny bit, although I think he's actually quite a good captain pick. And the argument for Man City would be that Man City are going to get one or two. Haaland alone is going to get one or two big chances in the match, and you can bank on him converting one of those chances, right? If not more of them. And that's kind of all it takes, right? And with the way they've kind of changed the bonus points for forwards too, it's like there's just a very good chance that his floor is like 8 points this weekend, right? It's like it's probably a very it's very hard for me to imagine him blanking again. Rarely happens in fantasy. It's not like a roulette wheel where it's like, oh, he got black and so it's going to be whatever, it's going to be red this time. But it's just like he just doesn't do it very often, right? He's just not so
I guess what stood out to me in the Arsenal Leicester match this weekend was the jig is up with Saka basically just like trying to push the ball along the 18-yard box to get the great shot with his left foot, which he's so good at. And if he gets a jump on his defender, sure enough. But there were so many moments in which Saka was like, I'd like to shoot here. And he ends up like on the other side of the freaking pitch because the defenders wouldn't let him because they knew you want to shoot on your left foot. I think Saka... I wonder where it goes from here in terms of the various elements to his game, and does it in turn benefit other players in the Arsenal attack versus benefit Saka? So Trossard is one of those weird random heroes from the FPL.
You can't really own him in fantasy, right? But it's like he feels like he's popping up all the time.
I wonder if you've got Eze as your only problem in your fantasy team. Trossard feels like the move to me this week.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean,
you still have Eze. What are your hopes and dreams for him?
I really don't know. I mean, I'm kind of defaulting. I think I might just kind of wait a couple of weeks and in sort of let inspiration, I've got an internet, like I've made my 2 transfers. Hopefully those are the final 2 that I make. Right. And he's on my bench this week. And so give me a couple of weeks to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do with him. I think it is tricky. I mean, we talked about, Brennan Johnson, I think is somebody who, does make sense there. I do still feel a little less enthusiastic about Dwight McNeil, sadly. If you didn't, I don't think any of those Chelsea midfielders are worth having. I think it's outside of Palmer, obviously.
Tell me why not Trossard, though. Give me a case against Trossard.
I guess it's just like that I don't completely trust him to be a starter, right? I mean, he has started the last 4.
Pretty good, pretty stable.
Of those 4, he was subbed off in the 58th minute of one and the 52nd minute of the other, right? So
not great.
So not great. So he's only played the full 90 once, with 2 pre-60-minute subs. I mean, so he's just kind of all over the place in terms of his returns. Right?
I think the thing with Trossard for me is his replacements have not done anything. Raheem Sterling was the most hilarious substitution in Leicester. Like he came on and he was just like, my biggest thing is that I'm going to pretend like I'm not here.
Yeah,
So if
that's
I'm
true.
not here, then they
Yeah.
cannot pay me,
And I
or
guess
not
by
pay
the
me.
way, sorry, I should say technically he was red carded, not subbed early in
Sure.
the Man City match.
Yeah,
So
sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I got caught just looking at
Yeah.
the
I mean,
little
compared to the
reams
other
of
people on the
numbers. Yeah,
squad, I think
yeah.
Trossard is pretty nailed.
I think that's
Uh,
true. I mean, what
yeah.
about Martinelli? Like, would you consider him? Like, he's he had a pretty good match
He
finally.
did. He
Yeah,
did.
he's exactly the same prices
Yeah.
as Eze. They're both 6.9
I
million.
guess I'd go Trossard because he just like sheer position on the pitch where he
Yep.
drifts more central.
Yeah.
And I think he's basically as potent and as important in Arteta's eyes as Martinelli would be.
Yeah, and if you're just looking at returns, it's 2 goals and an assist for Trossard, 1 goal and 2 assists for Martinelli.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate those either of those moves because they still do have 2 really nice fixtures ahead of them as well, right? The Southampton match and then Bournemouth as well in game weeks 8. So that's it after the international break. The fixtures do get a lot worse for Arsenal after that, right? And so I think if you wanted to kind of like, I guess one answer to the Palmer question is you could just give it a couple more weeks, right? Like, because it is a lot easier to go like for like from Saka to Palmer, right? I mean, the difference is like 0.6. It's not insurmountable, right? And so by any means. So I think that you could just wait a week or two and kind of wait till Arsenal's fixtures turn, and then if Palmer blanks the next 2 or does something, I don't know. It's sort of, I mean, the only problem then is you might be missing out on more returns, but obviously there's a good chance, good chance that in this Southampton home match that you're going to get something from Saka. Like, I would not feel any urgency to drop Saka at the moment.
This is the craziest thing to me, is just sort of like, who's going to get the returns?
Yeah.
This great player in the Premier League, this incredible player in the Premier League, that incredible player in the Premier League, or this incredible player in the Premier League. It's to put yourself in this position where you're like, I'm going to stake my claim to either, and I can't have the other. It's Saka, Palmer, Salah, Saka. It's impossible. It's impossible to predict.
Yeah, I mean, there was a question from producer Dave who said, "Who's must have?" And I think it's pretty wild that there's almost nobody outside of, I mean, you and I, even Haaland, who you and I feel like is maybe the one must-have player, is not a feeling that's universal across the game, right?
Yeah, sure. I think the must-haves right now really come down to actually to Morgan Rogers. Like, we are trying to
enabler.
Exactly.
Options.
Yeah. Who are the budget guys, and who are the budget guys that sort of, if you're learning a foreign language, we're trying to figure out what the basic nouns and verbs are. And then the premium guys are just like cognitive, like, I'm out of my depth here right now, but what I feel like you can't like overlook the easy picks of Morgan Rogers, or basically, do you have I was looking at questions on a Discord earlier today where it's just like, well, you don't have a Arsenal defender. What's your plan there?
Yeah.
So,
what about Jurrien Timber, by the way? I mean, we talked about him a little in the Patreon pod, but at 5.5 million, he started the last, I think it's 6 matches for Arsenal. I don't know how Zinchenko gets his spot back.
Why would he?
Yeah, why would he? I mean, Timber's been fantastic.
Timber's a pick. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, 5.5 million.
He's the new Ben White.
Got an assist this weekend. I do think that White eventually gets back into the squad. I mean, he was just too good last season, right? But I think that it's very unusual to me. I don't know. I'm really curious. Like, I don't know. I mean, we saw that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think as a right back, he's been fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I don't think that's gone away.
Where Arsenal are in this very pivotal moment where, you've got to just like cut bait, and Ben White feels like a player that got them to this level and is now going to get cut out because he's not at the level.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, I'm not sure that I have seen enough from Calafiore and Timber the last couple of weeks to definitively say that they're outclassing White, but I think they have put in 2 really good performances the last 2 weeks for sure. So I don't know, I think it'll be very interesting. So what is your planned move this week, looking ahead to game week 7?
Well, I think my move right now is honestly mm, to not make a transfer. There's no obvious move for me to make other than basically sort of like gutting my team. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
doing
I
what I
could,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could share my screen if you want to
Yep,
take your screen
yep.
off, and I can put my team up there.
Great.
Yeah, let's do it. And here we go. So the options would be João Pedro to. So Delap is actually somebody who kind of interests me in that you could call it very knee jerk because he scored a brace.
He's looked good though.
Yeah, but he
Like
has looked
this season.
good,
Yeah.
and he's obviously the man for Ipswich, and if points are going to come for them fantasy wise, he's probably going to be involved. And João Pedro, I think, is a dead fantasy asset, and the quicker you can get rid of him, the better. I wouldn't take a hit to get rid of João Pedro because, for obvious reasons, what you get in return. So I guess like it's just for me, the fixtures are weird in game week 7 where
Hmm.
I feel like I'm benching Anthony Robinson, like one of the great defensive assets so far this season, and he's away at the Etihad, and I feel like he's got to go. And then suddenly my bench feels tested for the first time. Like
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks have been defined by I've had 2 good players on my bench, and now this week I feel like I'm not relying on my bench for
Yeah.
anything.
I think it's a great weekend for narrative.
Hmm.
It's like if you're a really casual Premier League fan, you might look at these fixtures and feel like there's not like a single like kind of home run fixture in here.
Hmm.
But I think for people who are, obviously like big enough fans to listen to this pod, right? Like I think there's a lot of really interesting stories this weekend. I think
Hmm.
Everton Newcastle is really interesting. I mean, Everton have been sort of put, they kind of were having these like heroic, or not even heroic, what's the word, it's like snatching defeat from the jaws of
Yeah, right.
victory and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, right?
Right.
And then they finally get their kind of signature win, right? This like much needed win. And they play a Newcastle squad that put in a pretty inspiring kind of second half comeback against Man City. They really
Hmm.
dominated Man City in the second half of that match too. So that's a really cool story. I think that Villa Man United, where it's like, is this Ten Hag's last match if they get kind of worked? Like, who knows, right? I think clearly he's in trouble.
Ten Hag is so terrible. Like, what a joke of a manager, by the way.
I mean, they really. I think like them winning the FA Cup was probably what kept his job, and it probably it was like a Pyrrhic victory, ultimately.
Hmm.
So I mean, I don't know. Like cup wins are etched, literally etched, Brandon, onto the cup. So so
Sure.
credit to him for that. But yeah, it does feel like they
No
that should have been
take that away from
him. But that probably should have been a send off for him.
Sure. Yeah. Everyone will talk
Yeah.
about it. Remember that FA Cup. Also, he was a joke of a manager. Anyway, like I wonder if I start Vout face over Emile Smith Rowe, which is kind of crazy. But like to me, I could continue this whole barrage of just starting attacking assets against Man City.
Interesting.
Anthony Gordon worked against Man City this week. Emile Smith Rowe might work against Man City next week.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, would I do that? No, I guess I'd just play Smith Rowe because Smith Rowe feels like the kind of player who could catch Man City on the break, right? Like just
totally. You got to be optimistic, and I love that about FPL is to play the optimistic pick, and play. It was sort of like the Pedro Porro against Manchester United. Even though like having him in my starting 11 this week put me at an advantage, and I got 5 points from him, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah,
it was not fun going into that match to be like, I am basically trying to make points not be taken away from me here.
That would be the one possible move, especially if you were lining up a future wild card for the next few weeks would
Yeah.
be Porro to someone like Timber or Gabriel.
Yeah. I
Like
think
the
Porro to Timber is a good call. I like that
yeah,
move.
yeah, because you could probably do that. Like I don't know how much you got in the bank, but you should be
I've
able to
got
do that.
point 0.4 in the bank, so I
Okay.
could, and they're roughly like for like in terms of price. So
Yeah.
that's a good call. I like
Yeah.
that.
So that might be a thought. All right, we've got a couple of questions. We did talk about we talked about as a replacements. We talked about must-haves. Dave Zahner asked, I went with a no Salah, no Haaland wild card for this week. Well, it worked out this week. I'm wondering if this is a viable long-term strategy. What are your thoughts? So this is one of those questions where I'm like, Dave, I don't know if you're going to want to know our answer here because you just
I mean,
it's like once you wild card, you got to just
yeah.
accept it, like you are where you are.
Well, yeah, just cut it right there, Josh. I actually have on the other line, I have somebody from the future who can give an actual answer to this question.
Oh, good.
There's this guy, Frank. Hi, my name's Frank. I'm from the future, and I'm here to tell you that yes, it's worked out for you. So that's incredible. Like Frank from the future. I don't know how he got here, but
on this pod,
yeah. I don't know what to say to that. Like, good luck.
Yeah,
the die is cast, my friend.
I think it's going to be hard to go longer than a few weeks without Haaland. I think he's the only player it seems in that squad right now. Maybe eventually Foden will step up again. Presumably he will, and become a viable FPL option. But the moment, or just a viable option to score goals. And I really, it feels like they need extra creativity right now because without KDB either, it's like I don't know who's even creating chances for them. It's like chances just seem to come out of the ether, right? It's like I don't know how Haaland's even got as many chances as he has so far this season. Given it's like it's just kind of weird the way they've lost. I mean, they had Alvarez, like he started like the first 20 plus matches last season, right? And they've lost Mahrez, and they've lost kind of all of these players that offered like some dynamism, on the wings, and it's like now it's like these new guys have not. I just like, I mean, Doku came on and did nothing, when he was on the pitch, and I mean, I like maybe there's something there with some of these other players, but it just kind of feels like it's like they're rolling out the same gang again, and it's I don't know. I mean, it's still working out for Haaland.
You don't
somehow.
know what the new plan is for sure, and the expectation with Pep. It's almost like a new season of Game of Thrones. Like you've got you're the biggest show on TV. Surely you've got something exciting in store for the watchers.
Yeah.
And
how many points, if you had to guess, how many points do you think Foden has so far this season?
I don't know, like 5 points.
3.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 3 points the season, which is kind of wild. So he's only played a total of 90 minutes across the first 6 matches.
I think he's being preserved for a real injection shot in November.
Yeah, and it's far be it from us to doubt Pep because it works out every year. Every year we laugh about them putting up these kind of tepid performances and conceding a bunch of goals, and then the spring rolls around and they go 10 matches without conceding a goal.
All that matters, right, is that Haaland looks fresh. Like Haaland is up for it, and you can watch these matches. Even though Haaland blanked this weekend, it was all about him. It all revolves around him. It's him. He is happening, and you can't deny it.
The pieces change, and yet he remains the one true talisman. So once again,
the Reese's and they're the pieces.
To answer Dave's question, you and I both agree that the one must have is Erling Haaland. I think we'll end there, Brendan. I like the way I like that final note. Do you have any players that are your ex-dog in him? Anybody that you're rooting for this week? If we want to end on a non-FPL note, that would be sort of a fun player.
A fun player. Yeah. It's really, I guess Carvalho is a player who I've really been kind of like, mentioning in terms of like, I'm trying to make X work on my team. Carvalho is 4.8.
Yep.
Dropped in price, and he started the last 2 matches, got the assist this week. I really have to embrace, the Brentford of it all. They're going to get their goal, win or lose. It doesn't matter. They will get their goal. And I just really, I want to see Carvalho go beyond the just like game piece of the Brentford, and I want him to be an actual fantasy asset at his price tag. So Carvalho is my pick for the X dog in him.
Okay, I like that. I'll go with I don't even know how to say his name. I'll just admit that right now. Is it Evan Nilsson? Is that how you say his name? The
From
Bournemouth forward. Yeah.
Evan Nielsen.
Evan Nielsen. Yeah. Who is like the most expensive transfer I think Bournemouth ever had. Has had a pretty terrible start, honestly, to his time at Bournemouth. Missed that
well for
pen,
the XDIH pick.
Well, I guess the reason is I'm kind of rooting for him. Like I like Bournemouth. I want them to. I like when they do well. I think it's fun. It's fun to have a team on the South Coast. I guess you do have Brighton already too, but they're that over in that kind of southwestern part of England.
Get yourself into trouble now.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not Rick Steves over here.
Yeah, but I believe it is Southwest England. I think I'm right about that. Okay. And but I would like that. I would like this transfer to work out well because I like to see clubs that are kind of mid-table or below spend money and get rewarded with it. It is and not just sort of get punished with a player that isn't delivering. So let's see something. Maybe it starts with tomorrow's Southampton match. And nobody owns them, so it's easy to root for him because you're not going to.
There's no skin off your back.
Yeah, exactly. His team, he's under 1% owned in fantasy, so you're fine.
Fantastic. Yeah, listen. Yeah. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, if you want to hear more of Always Cheating, we highly encourage and appreciate you going to patreon.com/alwayscheating, where you can become a supporter of the pod. What you get in return is access to our Discord server, where you can get Rate My Teams from us and all of our friendly followers, and also free not free, but you can get ad-free podcasts every week. We do our Gameweek deadline podcast every Thursday evening, and I love them. I actually ripped a wonderful Sesame Street song for our last Patreon podcast.
People have been loving the song, so whether you're singing them or adding them, there's a lot of music coming from your Toronto apartment right now.
Patreon, whether they know it or not, allows you access beyond the sort of like Shazam-esque paywall of a regular podcast. So we try to make it worth your while at patreon.com/always cheating. And as always, the biggest patrons of them all are our producers. Josh, could you say thank you to them?
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't always get a chance to be the thanker.
Do it.
But yeah. Thank you to Mike, to Petro. Mike, I hope you're following my not terrible hand egg cup team this year. Trevor Ingerson, hope to see you next weekend. This is like Romper Room. I can just name people and then talk about.
I want a little story about everybody.
Yeah, Dave coming to New York. So we're going to do a meetup in New York. We keep forgetting to talk about it on this pod, but I guess it's the weekend of. I think it's Saturday, October 19th. So if you're still listening this far into the pod, we'll talk more about it in next week's pod. I have to remember to actually put something at the top of the running order. But we're going to do a big meetup on Saturday. We're going to try to go to the Black Horse, assuming they open early enough for us to do it. If not, we'll go into Manhattan. Sure. But yeah, more to come on that front. Our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Yanos, Jesse Halstead. If I was going to do it for everybody, it would have taxed me. Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Babas Coombe, Rom Frost, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly. Blair Jacobson, by the way, I still tell his House Hunters story that he told us when we did a meetup in New York. I just told it again a couple weeks ago. Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock. You have to know him to hear that story. I'm not going to relay it myself.
Sure.
Dan Parsons.
Lore.
Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jeff Turner, as he does it. Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Kyle Robbie, Brian Clark. So many producers, Brandon. Thomas Tislov, Fro Jacobson, The Saint, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noan Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vetterstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the three Jameses, James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland, Jack, and then our newest producer, Craig at Total Maths Tutoring. Thank you so much to everyone who supports the pod. If you want to subscribe to the pod, please do so. You can subscribe on Spotify, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe anywhere. You can also subscribe on YouTube. So if you are listening on YouTube, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. Or if you want to check out the pod on YouTube, it's we don't have too many bells and whistles, but sometimes it's fun just to match a face with the pod. You can go to you can go to our Always Cheating page, and you can obviously follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at all, or just email us hailcheaters@gmail.com. Thanks everything, guys. We'll see you next week or Thursday if you're a Patreon supporter. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.